Hello everyone and welcome to Jay Talks Crime. Yes, I am Jay and I am back with a solved true crime case for you all today. I do want to wish everyone a very happy new year. It's going to be an amazing year for the channel and I'm super excited to see the growth I'm sure this channel is going to have throughout this year. This is the first video of 2023 and we are on case number 10. We are officially past the holidays, but this case does take place on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so I thought now would be a good time to cover this specific case. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. That way you don't miss out on every single upload. I will now put up my disclaimer. Not only am I going to be talking about a brutal death, I will be discussing topics such as domestic abuse and violence. So if that is something you don't want to hear about, go ahead and click out now. But let's go ahead and get into today's case, the murder of Za'Zell Preston. Za'Zell Dominique Preston was born on September 5th, 1985 in Orange, California. She grew up with quite a few siblings. I believe she had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, so definitely a busy household. She had a large family in general. She had lots of aunts, uncles, cousins, and they all adored her. She was known to her family as Zizi, a cute little nickname that they gave her. She had a passion for dance and was really good at it according to her family members. Zazelle was described as bright, determined, compassionate, kind, and an extremely forgiving young woman. She had her first child, her oldest daughter, Zayana, during high school in the year 2003 and quickly became a wonderful mother to her. She gave birth to her second child, another little girl named Valis, 5 years later. Zazelle adored her daughters and they adored her right back. And for a little while it was just them, this small family of 3. But this didn't last very long. Zazelle was a gorgeous young woman and I bet she had many people that wanted to be with her. It was then in the year 2008 Zazelle met her new romance. In the beginning, it was magical, and Zazelle was head over heels for this man. She would post on social media pictures of them and post about how lucky she was to have found this man. But as months began to pass, this relationship would turn into a complete nightmare. This man's name is William Wallace, which I will now only refer to him as W for the remainder of this video. On social media, they seem to be perfect. Picture perfect, just absolutely a beautiful looking couple. But what was really going on within their relationship was anything but perfect. Allegedly, according to several of Zazelle's family members and friends, W was extremely abusive. Allegedly, he would constantly beat her on several occasions. They would get into extremely heated arguments all the time. It just wasn't a healthy relationship. Her family describes W as explosive, with a quick temper. He was controlling and violent, and he always seemed to lash out whenever anything didn't go his way. They claim there had been more than one occasion where W threatened to kill Zazelle. Zazelle's grandmother described an incident where she found Zazelle sitting in a fetal position after an alleged beating. She was just completely traumatized, unconsolable, and her grandmother had to sit there and calm her down. In another incident, her grandmother remembers that Zazelle had called her for help while inside hiding in a convenience store. She was hiding from W in this bathroom. So there is a history with domestic abuse within this relationship. Zazelle's loved ones begged her several times to leave this toxic and abusive relationship, and according to them, she did leave him a few times. But W was relentless. He would always appear back into her life, begging for her forgiveness, begging her to take him back, and saying things like he has changed and he wouldn't hurt her again. And Zazelle, who was such a kind and forgiving person, she wanted to believe him, and she would take him back time and time again. W had been arrested during one of these domestic disputes with Zazelle, and this time her family believed that this was finally the end of this relationship. At least they had been hoping. But after spending a couple of weeks in prison, W had been freed once again, and he came right back to Zazelle. He begged her again for forgiveness, swore up and down that things would be different this time, and Zazelle unfortunately took him back once again. But things quickly became more complicated because in early 2011, Zazelle had discovered that she was pregnant. Throughout her pregnancy, Zazelle had been pretty active on social media. She would post about the love she had for her growing family and how excited she was to meet her 3rd baby. They had discovered that they were having a boy, and Zazelle was beyond excited to be having a son. During her pregnancy, W had been arrested once again, and Zazelle visited him while he was in prison. And it was during these visits, during this time, that he claimed that he had found Jesus, and he claimed that he was going to live life as a man of faith. Zazelle, around this time, confided to her family that she was intending to marry W as soon as possible. And her family and friends didn't take this news very well at all. They hated this idea. But despite everyone being against this marriage and them begging her not to marry W, as soon as W had been released from prison, they did get married. And so now they were husband and wife, waiting for the birth of their first child together. Zazelle was taking college courses. She was studying to become a domestic violence counselor. She just wanted to help people, and it's such a shame that she didn't get the chance to. Their son, Marcel, was born, and life continued pretty normal after he was born. But within a few weeks after the birth of their son, a fight would ensue and escalate, and this would lead to Zazelle's murder. That brings us to Christmas Eve, 2011. The family spent the day normal. They then left early that evening to a Christmas party at a neighbor's house. Both Zazelle and W were both seen drinking at this party, and while they were at this party, I do not believe the couple were arguing at all during the party. At least, no one reported them arguing while they were at this party. But the family did return to their Anaheim home later that same evening. Very quickly after the couple had gotten home, an argument started. What this argument was about, no one honestly really knows. No one had reported the details on this argument. All three of the kids were also in the home as this argument broke out between Zazelle and W. Zazelle's oldest daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, remembers them fighting that night, and she would later testify herself regarding the argument that occurred and how it proceeded to escalate and get worse as more time passed. Eventually, they weren't just screaming at each other. They became physical towards one another. W began to hit Zazelle in the head repeatedly. Then, during the climax of this fight, W pushed Zazelle into a glass table. She fell into the table and it shattered beneath her. Broken pieces of glass were scattered everywhere and were in her skin. W then instructed her then 8-year-old daughter to remove several pieces of glass out of Zazelle's body. There seems to be a consensus that at this point, Zazelle was at the very least unconscious after falling into this glass table. After the shards of glass were taken out, W began to drag her body into the bathroom with, again, the help of her oldest daughter. While he was half carrying her and half dragging her to the bathroom, Zazelle's daughter remembers that W actually dropped Zazelle's body, and when she was dropped, her head hit the toilet seat really hard. Her daughter would also give this testimony during the trial that this happened and how she believes that this was the blow that ultimately killed her mother. W then dragged Zazelle's body into their bedroom and instructed the kids to go to sleep. By this point, it was at least 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and W slept next to Zazelle's lifeless body that night. In the morning, after the kids woke up, as young children do every Christmas morning, the girls were wanting to open their presents, and unbelievably, W then proceeds to drag Zazelle's body into the room. He props her on the couch, he puts sunglasses on her face, and he tells the girls, quote, "Mommy ruined Christmas. She got drunk and ruined Christmas," close quote. He then tells them to open their gifts as their mother's dead body is sitting on this couch. Which, let me stop for a second. I think, in my opinion, W knew Zazelle was gone at this point. And this was him just being in straight up denial. He was fully aware that she had passed away. He didn't want to believe it, but he knew. And it's just sick that her children witnessed this entire ordeal the night before. I feel so incredibly bad for her daughters. Her son was barely 7 weeks old, so thank God he doesn't remember any of this. But those girls, they remember. And this was Christmas. It's supposed to be a special and a magical time for kids, and this piece of shit murdered their mother and then single-handedly ruined Christmas for them forever. It's really heartbreaking. They were 8 and 3 years old when this happened. And then on top of that, the oldest had to testify in court about all of this. She described that at one point she touched her mother's body and remembers it being cold to the touch and hard. I just couldn't imagine going through that. I don't know if the second oldest daughter testified. She was only 3 years old at the time, so she may not have remembered enough details to testify, but Ziana did. And that breaks my heart that she had to recount this horrific experience. It's absolutely horrible. But W wasn't able to keep the charade going for long. After the girls had opened their gifts, around 9:30 a.m. that morning, 911 paramedics were called, and W stated that his wife needed medical attention. Paramedics arrived to find Zazelle's body slumped over the couch. There was blood tracked throughout the entire apartment, as well as several holes in the walls, and a door was even found to be off its hinges. W, unsurprisingly, was arrested on the spot and taken into custody. This tragic event took place on Christmas in 2011, but for seemingly no reason, and I tried to find out why, trust me, but I could not, for the life of me, find the reason why it took almost a damn decade for Zazelle's murder to go to trial. And honestly, that pisses me off. I don't know what reason could have delayed this trial back for that long and for that many years, but yes, it took 9, almost pretty much 10 years for this to go to trial. Thankfully, W was in prison this entire time waiting for this trial, and he was held on a $1 million bail as he waited for the trial. Finally, the trial began in early 2021. The defense argued that Zazelle's death wasn't a murder at all. They claimed that it had all been just a tragic accident, and that Zazelle drunkenly just tripped and fell into this glass table on her own. That she wasn't pushed by W, that she had just tripped and fell into this table, and she hit her head, and that's what caused her death. W maintained that Zazelle had been the one to start the attack that night, and that he had only been defending himself from her attacks toward him. But the prosecution wasn't having this narrative. They pointed out that Zazelle didn't just die from one injury to her head. In fact, she had received several injuries to her head that night. He had beat her in the head so many times that it was the amount of trauma and the consistent blows to her head that killed her. During the sentencing hearing, before the verdict was read, Zazelle's mother stated, quote, "He beat and tortured my daughter, and at the same time, mentally assassinated her children. He showed her no mercy. Let's show him no mercy." Close quote. But ultimately, the jury didn't buy into the defense either, and W was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison in April of 2021. Since he had been in prison since the incident occurred in 2011, that means that he has already, at this point now, as of 2023, has served 11 years of this sentence. I'm glad that they didn't try going for first-degree murder for this case. I do not believe W intended to kill Zazelle that night. I think that is obvious from the way he tried to pretend that she was still alive and just unconscious that Christmas morning, even though she was obviously gone. If they had gone for a first-degree murder, I think he would have gotten off of this. I really do. This is just a terribly sad and tragic case. And again, I still can't stand that all 3 of these kids were in the home while this happened. Her kids did not deserve to see any of what happened to their mother. And Zazelle didn't deserve to have her life taken from her. She was 26 years old, and she had so much more life ahead of her. She was only 2 weeks away from getting her degree to be a domestic violence counselor. Only 2 weeks away. She had everything going for her, but sadly, it was all taken away, and her children had to grow up without their mother. And what's even worse was that their childhood had been ripped from them that day as well. Domestic abuse is a real issue, and it doesn't just happen in the United States. Abuse happens worldwide. And so many uneducated people always stupidly say, well, why can't the victim of abuse just leave their abuser? And all I have to say to that is that it's not that simple. It's hard to walk away from that type of situation, and the only people who truly understand that are victims of abuse. It is a complicated situation, and if you know someone who is being abused, or if you are that person that is being abused, find the help that you or they need. There are resources that help domestic abuse victims every day. If it's your family member, be there for them. Support them. It's a roller coaster, but they need to know that you are there for them, even if it's just to be a shoulder for them to cry on. Zazelle had been a victim, and now, unfortunately, she isn't here anymore. I hope you all share her story and continue to remember Zazelle for the kind and sweet person that she was, how she wanted to make a difference and help those who were going through difficult times just like she was. She still has a legacy, and it's important that we respect it. But that is all I have on this case for today. Please remember to like, share, Subscribe if you haven't already. It's a brand new year, and I will be back with case number 11 shortly, so stay tuned. But until next case, bye everyone.